Hi, my name is Neil Snyder. Thank you for joining me for another Snyder Talk video commentary. As you know, I'm in the process of going through three phrases that appear in the Bible frequently. The first is the name of Yahweh. The second is I am Yahweh. And the third is my name is Yahweh. Right now I'm going through the phrase the name of Yahweh. As I told you in part one, the name of Yahweh, the phrase the name of Yahweh appears in 104 verses in the Bible. And today I want to go through the three verses in the book of Exodus that contain the phrase the name of Yahweh. And they're quite revealing. The first is Exodus 27. Now I'll just tell you before I start that I think the thing that sets this verse apart more than anything else is that it's one of the 10 commandments. It's the third commandment. And it goes like this: You shall not take the name of Yahweh your God in vain, for Yahweh will not leave him unpunished who takes his name in vain. The word translated as vain in that verse is shav. The Hebrew word is shav. It means to use God's name in a destructive, deceptive, or false manner. It can also mean simply to misuse God's name. There's a similar verse in Leviticus 24:11. It is a prohibition against blaspheming God's name. The word translated as blaspheme in Leviticus 24:11 is nakab. It means to use God's name in a way that is incomplete, dishonest, or deceptive. Now, this is something you need to understand. We were told not to use God's name in vain. We were told not to blaspheme God's name. We were not told not to use God's name. In fact, what we're told says that we're to use God's name in a way that is complete, honest and above board, very open, appropriately. We're not to curse God's name and other things like that, but we're supposed to use his name. There are other verses in the Bible that tell us to declare his name. So in effect, what the verse in Exodus, that's Exodus 27, and the verse in Leviticus 24:11, what they do is they put restrictions on how we use the name. And candidly, it just boils down to being honest and sincere and open. That shouldn't be hard for anyone to do, not if they love Yahweh. If you want to tell people about your God, but you want to be open about it and honest about it, that's all. The other verse, the second verse in Exodus that contains the phrase the name of Yahweh is Exodus 33:19. Let me read that to you and then I'll tell you a little bit about it. And here it is. It says, I myself will make all my goodness pass before you and will proclaim the name of Yahweh before you. And I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious and will show compassion on whom I will show compassion. Now, this verse is interesting for a lot of reasons, but not the least of which is the fact that Moses has been down to the bottom of the mountain, and he's met Yahweh on Mount Sinai. He's gone down to the bottom of the mountain with the 10 Commandments, the tablets of stone on which Yahweh wrote the 10 Commandments. And there at the bottom of the mountain, he found the children of Israel worshiping in front of a golden calf. Now, I'm not going to go into detail explaining a lot about that situation, but I'll tell you this. It's not as simple and easy to understand as most people seem to believe. For example, I'm pretty confident that Aaron, who built that calf, didn't think that calf was Yahweh. Now, why he built it is another question. It deserves some attention, but I'm not going to address it today. If you're interested in reading about that, you can download the book. His Name is Yahweh. It's available for free at the website hisnameisyahweh.org. I encourage you to read it. But what I want to focus on today is what Yahweh and Moses discussed following that incident, because Moses goes back up on the mountain, and the best thing for me to do is just read to you the passage of Scripture that contains this verse. That's Exodus 33:19. The passage is from Exodus 33:12 through Exodus 33:23. And it reads like this. Then Moses said to Yahweh, See, you say to me, bring up this people, but you yourself have not let me know whom you will send with me. Moreover, you have said, I I have known you by name, and you have also found favor in my sight. Now, therefore, I pray you, if I have found favor in your sight, let me know your ways, that I may know you, that I may find favor in your sight. Consider, too, that this nation is your people. And Yahweh said, My presence shall go with you, and I will give you rest. Then Moses said to Yahweh, If your presence does not go with us, do not lead us up from here. For how then can it be known that I have found favor in your sight, I and your people? Is it not by your going with us, so that I and your people, may be distinguished among all the other people who are upon the face of the earth? Yahweh said to Moses, I will also do this thing of which you have spoken, for you have found favor in my sight, and I have known you by name. I'm going to stop there for a second. That's twice he said, I've known you by name. Yahweh is saying, I've known you by name. There's something important about that concept. I have known you by name. And the same can be said of Yahweh. We have known him by name. There's something intimate about that. Continuing on now. Then Moses said, I pray you, show me your glory. And Yahweh said, I myself will make all my goodness pass before you, and will proclaim my name, the name of Yahweh, before you. And I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and will show compassion on whom I will show compassion. But he said, You cannot see my face, for no man can see me and live. Then Yahweh said, Behold, there is a place by me, and you shall stand there on the rock. And it will come about, while my glory is passing by, that I will put you in the cleft of the rock, and cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will take my hand away, and you shall see my back, but my face shall not be seen. Again, that's Exodus 33, verses 12 through 23. Now, listen to this. Here we have a situation where Moses has just destroyed the tablets that contain the Ten Commandments. He goes back up to Yahweh, and basically he's saying, if you don't go with us, we don't have any hope. We need to have you go with us, before us, so that we'll stand out in the nations where we're going. Yahweh says he'll go, and then Moses says, and I want to see your face. I want to hear your name. And Yahweh says, okay, I'm going to let you see my form, and I'm going to pronounce my name before you, which is exactly what he does. There's a close friendship or bond between Moses and Yahweh. Moses is only one of two people in the Bible who the Bible refers to as a friend of Yahweh. That's Moses and Abraham. That's quite a statement. He was a friend of Yahweh. They knew each other by name. All of us have been invited to know Yahweh by name, and if you're catching on to this message, you're becoming Yahweh's friend. I think that's exactly what he's saying. The third verse that contains the phrase, the name of Yahweh in Exodus, is Exodus 34:5. 34:5 says, Yahweh descended in the cloud and stood there with him as he called upon the name of Yahweh. Yahweh stood there with him. In the verse we just discussed, Yahweh's presence passed before Moses, and he saw Yahweh's form from the back, but he wasn't able to see his face. In this verse, Yahweh descends on the mountain in a cloud, and he stood there beside Moses. That's exactly what the scripture says. Now let me ask you this. How could he stand there beside Moses if he doesn't have a human form? Absolutely he has a human form. Moses saw him. Now others saw his face. Abraham, for example. I'm not going to be talking about those verses today where Abraham actually engaged in conversation and ate meals with Yahweh. But I'll simply tell you this. There was something about Yahweh's appearance at this time. It's probably his human form, but it's a glorified human form, which would have made looking at him deadly. And I'm pretty confident that's the reason Yahweh did not want Moses to see his face. But be that as it may, we do know this. We've got to use Yahweh's name because we were told to declare it to the world. We know we shouldn't use God's name in vain, and we know we shouldn't blaspheme his name. But those restrictions are no prohibition against saying the name Yahweh. In fact, I can even go farther than that. I believe that now, since so many people throughout the world are coming to the realization that it's important for us to know and share Yahweh's name, that Yahweh's in the process of revealing his name to us all over again. Now, why would he be doing this? I can think of a couple of reasons, and I think very good reasons. The first is because people all over the world, and especially religious leaders and political leaders, are telling us that we all worship the same God, but we call him by different names. Well, that's just not true. There's only one God, and his name is Yahweh. You don't want to be confused about that. If you buy into that logic, you'll find yourself worshiping something other than Yahweh, and that is a very deadly problem. I think the second reason that Yahweh is doing this is to build us into the family he wants us to be, to make us into the bride he created us to be. We're not just creations. We were created to be in the family of Yahweh. We're to be proud of that. We're to wear his name as a badge of honor. We're certainly not to shy away from using that name. I liken it to a woman who is marrying someone she loves. Before she marries, she thinks about the fact she's about to take on a new name, and that name is the name of her husband. Yahweh is giving us a name. It's his name. He's going to write it on our foreheads. He tells us that 3 times in the book of Revelation. He's going to write his name on our foreheads. We're to be as proud of that name as a bride is proud of her husband's name. Because in effect, Yahweh is our husband. We are his bride. That's nothing to be ashamed of. We should be very proud of that and share it with the world. By the way, if you would like, you can find this video commentary in addition to the YouTube posting. You can find it in written form at snydertalk.com. Just go to the editorials and the page on the right, and you'll find this editorial is available. I believe it's December the 14th is the date of publication. It's up now, so you can go look at it in written form today. But thank you very much for joining me for another Snyder Talk video commentary, and I look forward to seeing you again for part 3.